Welcome back to Unapologetically Me. Today we are going to be talking about my attachment style known as anxious avoidant. Today we are going to be talking about it a little bit differently than maybe what you've heard of, because for me it didn't look like the textbook version of what a fearful avoidant is. It didn't look like me blowing up someone's phone or running away from every relationship. It actually looked pretty calm for the most part. And honestly, that's kind of why I think it took so long for me to realize what I was dealing with and why I was struggling in relationships. And I think for a long time, I didn't heal my attachment style because I was actually choosing people that didn't require me to. I really didn't realize I was doing it, but I think when I started recognizing patterns in people, the type of people I was seeing or dating became kind of a problem. I basically quit dating for a while, and I really just needed to reflect on what was going on with me internally. I always felt like I was good in relationships. I communicated well, I was patient, I guess I was understanding. I wasn't looking to play games. So in my mind, I didn't think I was the problem because I wasn't super anxious and I wasn't avoidant in an obvious way. If anything, I was the calm one and the one holding it together. And I was usually the one that was more emotionally aware of what was going on. But what I wasn't looking at was who I was actually choosing as a partner, because I got to be the strong one, the understanding one, the one who had it together. And when you're in that role, you don't actually have to be fully vulnerable. And then it just hit me one day after kind of going through a really difficult situation I was in. It was a very tumultuous breakup, and I just said, enough is enough. Like, I can't keep putting myself in situations like this all because I feel like I can change someone or fix them or whatever. It just wasn't working. And I wasn't avoiding the work on purpose, but I just wasn't in a situation where it forced me to put the work in and fully face it. I was protecting myself from choosing people I didn't have to fully open up to. So when I look back now, my version of fearful avoidant wasn't chaotic. It was about control. It was about me staying close to connection, but not fully stepping into it. Because if I'm the one holding everything together, I'm not the one at risk. And the risk would be vulnerability, obviously. As I've talked in the past about my struggle with being vulnerable in situations. So control was my means to keep that from happening. So I guess I thought I was secure because of the control, but control doesn't mean secure. I wasn't being challenged either. I wasn't being challenged to show up differently in the relationship. I wasn't in a relationship where I could ask, can this person actually show up for me too? So by that I mean, what I was doing, I was asking myself, what do they need from me? And what I should have been asking was, are they actually showing up for me? And that is a very different experience, because now I'm not over functioning, over giving, filling a gap. Now I'm observing. And what that means is, the best way to describe it is, I'm not trying to be the best for the other person. I'm being myself and I'm observing their behavior. How are they showing up? Are they putting on a show? Are they performing? But that's part of the control that I'm talking about. It's like, if I meet somebody who has issues that I feel like I can fix or that I can change or whatever, then I saw that as stability for me, because I didn't have to be the one putting the work in and doing the things to change my patterns. So now I'm letting people show me who they are without stepping in to manage it. And I'm not going to lie that shift is uncomfortable at first, because when you're used to being the strong one, being with someone who actually shows up, who communicates, who's consistent, means you don't get to hide anymore. And that's kind of scary. That's a scary thing to face when you're putting yourself out there and needing to work on those things that you've been suppressing for all these years. Now you have to be seen, and that can feel unfamiliar at first. So if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, this sounds like me, ask yourself, if I stop trying so hard in this dynamic, would it still move forward? Or am I the one keeping it alive? Because that question will tell you everything. Like what I was explaining in some previous podcast episodes, I did feel like a shell of a person, and what I needed to do was figure out the core of the problem. And I, at the time, joined a program called Journey to Wholeness, and it's basically a program that goes through your life. You set up a timeline of all the things that you've experienced in your lifetime, good and bad, everything you can remember from the day you were born. You know, obviously you don't remember things when you're born, but if you can remember things you were told about when you were born, or even when you were in the womb. And by doing that, you can sort of discover things that have happened to you that created the patterns in your life. That was the start for me. And when that started shifting how I acted, and I started noticing that I was the only one showing up. Honestly, I didn't figure this out overnight. It still was confusing for me as time went on. I actually had to understand myself first. And a few books that I read once I learned about attachment styles were, What Attachment Style Are You? And this one helped me understand the why. The second book that I would suggest you read is Securely Attached. And this one helped me look at my patterns and where they started. This one's kind of a book that actually correlates a little bit with Journey to Wholeness, the program I was in, where it goes over your timeline. So you can kind of identify things that had happened in your past. And then the third book that I read that I would recommend is Anxious, Avoidant, and Disorganized Attachment Recovery Workbook. And that one gave me the tools to change it. Because awareness is one thing, but you have to actually shift your behavior too. I think the biggest thing I learned in this is if you're not healing, it might not be because you're not trying. It might be because you're just not choosing situations where you don't have to. And avoiding vulnerability might feel safer in the moment, but it will keep you stuck longer than actually doing the work ever will. And once you see the patterns, you can't unsee it. And that's where things start to change. So fearful avoidant would be in a normal situation where I'm actually with somebody who's there and being in it with me and showing up the way it should in a healthy relationship. There would be kind of a back and forth between anxious and avoidant. So avoidant, again, is where you kind of run away and shut down. And then anxious is where you're kind of like overextending so that you feel chosen. While I do recognize that that is part of who I am, the difference now is I can recognize it, I can address it, but I don't act on it. I learned to regulate my emotions without having to expect it from somebody else. And again, I learned how to observe before I get invested in anything. I guess that's where I want to end things. Is I also want to say that this doesn't just work in partnerships. This works in any relationship. You know, friendships, family. It's stuff that you need to address for the sake of all of your relationships. Your children. It is the most important thing to address your own wounds and your own patterns and work on you. And I feel like that's a huge thing missing. People just aren't looking within themselves. Coming out of the other side of that, it's like this veil has been lifted from over my eyes. And it's so empowering and freeing. So I'm going to leave it at that. I will be continuing conversations about attachment styles I just wanted to cover mine because I feel like there isn't one size fits all for each of these. Everybody's story is different, everybody's experience is different, and everybody's a slightly different version of them. So it's not a textbook theory of it being all these things. Each one of us is different. So, and that's what makes it so beautiful, is everybody is so different. We can relate to each other, but we definitely still show up differently, and we're never going to fully understand one another. But it's having that compassion and that grace for the other person, trying to learn about that person and being open, and both people need to do it in order for it to work. So, thank you for listening. I hope to see you next time.